Fire Emblem Three Houses,
Yes.
Kim. This is a tricky one to talk about right now, but there's a preview embargo that's up for this. And
Yes.
it's fair to say you've been playing a lot of this game.
Yes, I have been a very, very busy late nights
Okay.
playing, but getting to know my students and, guiding them on the right path, which is what this is all about.
So you play the role of a teacher on this Nintendo Switch exclusive.
Yeah, it's so brilliant because I never really thought about how well the teaching dynamics fit into Fire Emblem, because you're constantly trying to boost people's stats and turn them into the class that you want. And so as a teacher, you kind of get to guide that because you get to instruct your students, so you can go there and be like, I want this student to focus, on his sword craft and, add extra. And if you encourage them, you get extra little bonuses to that experience towards it. So it's really fun to kind of decide. You get this group of students and you kind of get to decide what path they're going to go on. Like, oh, I want this person to totally be like my tank and take all the damage and so forth. And
JV, you're a teacher. That's what it's like, right?
Yeah,
Like, you'll be my
exactly.
tank,
You
little student
preparing
baby.
your
You are my
kids
archer.
for the battle of life, basically. And that's what it is. And it really, what makes it so great is the relationships in the game just get so enhanced by it. Like Fire Emblem has always been really cool because you could kind of pair characters together on the battlefield, and then you get to do those support conversations and see how they grow as not only battle mates, but teammates. So, battle mates and friends. Sorry, I meant to say that. But
Battle mates with benefits.
well, not always. They can
Oh.
still just be friends, but you get to see how they initially would start off maybe not liking each other, and then as they get on the battlefield together and they help each other, then they're like, oh, you know what, you're not so
Bonding
bad.
over murdering people.
Yeah,
Boy, look at all that blood.
I mean, that's
that's
all of
pretty
Fire
much what
Emblem,
it's all
though,
about.
to be fair.
Okay, hang on a second. Can you romance students then, or are you just playing a weird matchmaker as the teacher?
There's a little... I'm not at the point in the game right now to say whether or not I can fully, but there is a time skip that they've talked about, and so it insinuates, and I have had a lot of flirtations going on, that you can eventually. But
Oh, so
there's a
wait, so the students will catch up to you?
There's
Is
a
that the idea?
5-year time skip. You do the part 1 that they've talked about this, so it's not anything that's a big secret or anything.
Okay.
But and you can kind of see your students pair off a little bit as they get to know each other.
Hot and heavy. JV, you love Fire Emblem. I remember we talked about it on the 3DS thing.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite series.
Specifically like Awakening, that's top of the heap for you?
Oh, yeah, Awakening is the best one.
Oh yeah.
Kim, I'm looking into your eyes. Is Awakening still the best one?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. All
I
right.
like some of the
Well, there we
older
go.
ones too, but Awakening just did so much for that series and still stands as and I feel like this one is kind of taking an approach with that Awakening did, where it's changing things up, but it's changing them up in a really interesting way. And fans are just going to really enjoy being able to take the school thing. It's just so brilliant.
Okay, hang on. What can you say? Is this game good or not?
Oh, okay. I am loving my time with it right now.
There we go.
I will say, I've enjoyed the way that it's set up is a really engaging loop, because you go and you kind of teach your students. You have little social events that you can take them out to tea, which the tea stuff's a little weird. I'll give it that. But
Wait, what kind of weird?
You can have tea parties with them. And so you pick the tea and you have to keep the conversation going. And if you get the conversation going long enough, all of a sudden you can just observe them and just go in. And it's kind of creepy.
Whoa,
It's
stop. What?
real weird.
It's
Wait,
real
what are we
creepy.
talking about? Okay.
It's real creepy.
So you keep a conversation rolling long enough, and then you can just start
Observing
ogling them?
Yes. It's weird.
What
It's
does that
the worst.
mean?
It's the worst part about the game, honestly. It's the one thing that, even how the tea parties are structured with the conversations, it's a little bit of a guessing game. You kind of have to really get to know each student to see how far you can go in with the conversations. But yeah, it's just you can look at them from all angles up close, and then if you click a button, they'll say something about oh, you noticed that scar on my face, or yeah, there's just
Oh, you noticed my genitals.
you went that okay. You do
I
not look
see.
at that. It's from the
It's classy. Okay.
It's tea, but the tea parties are I didn't like that. I don't like them right now, but they're very beneficial to enhancing your relationship. So you kind of want to do them.
JV, what are you looking forward to at this game?
His tea
None of those bits. No, I really do I feel like we haven't had a good Harry Potter game yet. Like we've
Ooh.
had solid Harry Potter games, and from what I played at E3, because I played an hour at E3, even like the castle itself, it's Hogwarts as hell.
Is it,
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it seems like there are scenes that deliberately like mimic certain parts of the movie versions of the castle. Like the hall where you eat with your students straight up looks like the hall in Hogwarts.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's shameless. So I think that's my favorite aspect of it. Besides, like I always love Fire Emblem's brand of strategy.
Yeah.
And as someone who was a former teacher, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. The student stuff kind of creeps me out because at least when I was being trained to be a student, they had lots of rules of like you
Trained to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
You always keep your door open, like your office door. When you're meeting with students, you always meet in public, just so there's never like any like misunderstandings or like gross shitty stuff like Kim's kind of talking about
Never
here.
lead your students into battle.
I'll say this. It's not, there's only a few times, tea parties and stuff, that it becomes like your students will sometimes flirt with you, but it's never like something you are like encouraging or
Right.
felicitating or anything. And really what it feels like is it just feels like you're kind of sitting there as like just guiding them, getting them close to what they need to do to be on the battlefield and survive, which is very big stakes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, being a teacher, like obviously Fire Emblem, it's optional, but there is permadeath. I mean, it just makes the permadeath hit so much harder when you
I
lose a
love
student, because
Yep.
you're like,
I don't think I did one playthrough without permadeath on, but every time I play Fire Emblem, it's always like, even the ones that make it optional, it's always with permadeath because those stakes are so good.
I'm
so fun.
I'm also just surprised with how big the game is. I wasn't expecting like as much as there is to do, and also just having the branching paths are very interesting because you start out and you pick between 3 houses, so you have your choice that you can make. I chose the Black Eagles because I'm dark inside, but no, I like.
Realistically, it's because you like the Blackhawks and
Yeah,
the Chelsea
thank
team,
you,
right?
thank you. No,
Okay.
actually, when I'm like, when in doubt, pick the female character. So she's the leader. Let me see how to say this. Edelgard. It's just a hard
Don't
name to
say it 3
say.
times.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, they say it in the game, and I'm like, it sounds like it just rolls off the tongue so easy. And then every time I try to say her name, it doesn't quite turn out that way. But picking that decision's kind of hard in the beginning. You get like maybe about an hour, half an hour to an hour in, depending on how fast you go through the dialogue stuff, where you can kind of sit there. And I remember being on the screen, and there's pros and cons to all of them. So like the one I picked, they're focused on magic, so you have better magic. Others archery, others swords.
Okay.
And then on top of that, you also have different students in there. So like with one, I really liked all the students' backstories, and I kind of was like, well, maybe I want to pick them, because you are really shaped, like you get really close with your class. It's not a decision that's like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm kind of just going to get to know everybody. You can recruit people from other houses if you want to, which I
Yeah.
definitely did, but it's like you are really locked in with this group, so you kind of got to like them a little bit too. So that was the other thing. And then one house, like there were a few people I really was like, oh yeah, I really want to get to know that character, but I can't stand this leader because he's just like generic, super, like the typical hero you would see. And so I wanted something different. But I mean, everybody will go into this like having different reasons for who they choose.
It's going to be the type of thing when this game comes out. And when does it come out, by the way?
Next Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to be the thing when it comes out. Everyone's going to be arguing about why their
Yeah.
school is the best, or how do you frame that?
Yeah, like what's
Their
the best?
house.
I said we should do a video where we just debate each other on it after other
boy.
people play. And it's hard because, like I said, I didn't expect it to be. I was like, oh, is this going to be one of those decisions that's kind of like, oh, we'll give you a decision, but it's not really that big of a deal.
Right,
No,
right.
you are like with this class, and you really build up a camaraderie. And then also, as you go on, there are some decisions that will branch the story that I've had multiple saves because I wanted to see just how much like it actually does change, and there are definitely different paths.
So you're going to be replaying this game. if you wanna get
Yes,
the full
and that's
experience.
what is like so crazy to me is like the game is good on its own, and then I think I immediately want to replay this game once I finish just to
Oh my
see the
God.
other houses and paths. And
Yeah.
it's been crazy to think how much effort they put into, doing all the different characters in each house, because each house doesn't have just like 2 or 3 characters. I mean, like you're close on the 10 mark on them, 10 classmates, whatever. And then it's just like on top of that, whew.
It's crazy, and it's so smart that they're taking this approach and just hey, it's one game, buy it. Because I feel like with Fates on the 3DS, everyone was confused about like, wait,
Which one do I buy?
Yeah, and then there's more that are releasing.
I feel like they started with the idea in Fates, like let's kind of create two like different games that feel very different but are like kind of still connected. And then with that, everyone was like, well, I don't want to purchase one or the other, as you said, like trying to decide. And with this, it's all in one, and there's a lot to the game. I'm really excited to figure out, like, see more, and after my playthrough, start up with another house immediately and just see how that kind of the vibe of that house is different from the one I did.
Yeah.
Not to be too reductive about it, but as far as like branching choice quality from what you've played so far, BioWare, Telltale, about how...
Oh God, this is interesting because you will see, how do I put this? There will be different scenes in different parts of the game, and like I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I'll just say I was surprised by how the different directions that the game can go in, and the choices actually being super interesting and smart, and just even me sitting there on the screen being like, I don't know what to pick. I'm conflicted.
But you feel informed about your choice?
Yeah, I feel like I'm informed, but I feel like they're doing a good job of balancing like these relationships you built versus like, well, what's for the greater good? And so you're kind of sitting there like, you're like, oh, my students are kind of everything to me right now. And then having to choose, like, what if your student does something you don't agree with? I mean, there's stuff like that goes on throughout the game that's really interesting.
And I heard they changed up the battle system, so it's no longer like the classic Fire Emblem triangle anymore?
Yeah, it's not the classic triangle. There's two things that go into it. So weapon type still does matter. Some enemies certain weapons will work better on them than others. But it's also unit type, it goes into account toward it. So maybe like armored enemies, some characters are better against them versus others, or even with your weapon type within them, like an iron sword will work better than a steel sword and vice versa. So that's cool. And then there's also the introduction of battalions, which you can have your group like command, you hire them and you can do this special battalion attack, which is good because you do not take a lot of damage doing those, and you can usually knock people out rather than just being on your own. So that's good. And then there's also combat arts now, which they pack more of a punch usually. As you get on, it feels like it's not as much, but your weapon durability takes a hit. So maybe too, you can also like hit somebody from a farther point as an archer than you'd normally be able to use them. So you'd like, oh, I want to take this guy out anyways early, but there's a sacrifice to doing that.
Okay.
And Kim, you can disagree, obviously, since you've played more, but from what I played at E3, it very much felt like the easiest way to think of the weapon system in earlier Fire Emblem games is rock, paper, scissors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is leaning towards more sort of like Total War enhancements, making things a little bit more complex.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But still, if you're new to Fire Emblem, the game very much has made this you able to, like, you can still see the forecast of like what your move's going to do ahead of time. So you know, like, okay, if I put this guy here, he's going to take at least 10 damage, but that's okay because I have my healer by or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's good because it's like, it's complex in its own way, but not the way that the game works. It makes it almost feel like, well, I'm seeing the math and the systems before I make the decision. Also, if you make a mistake, there is a thing called divine order where you can turn back your turns a few. So
it's not in real life, baby.
You can
not
save.
use it.
You can save somebody if you want to. So if you do have permadeath on and you're just like, I cannot lose that student and I do not want to restart the battle, because again, these battles can get really lengthy. They
Like
can
how
go,
long are we talking?
I've had some go all the way up to like 30 to 45 minutes.
Wow.
Especially when you get into the game, like it starts off and it very much is a good like progression of like, battles go fast. And then as you go on and the stakes get higher, so do the battles and so do the turns. So it's very easy when you're doing a long battle like that to accidentally like overlook and make a mistake. But at least you have that to like go back on if you want to.
Like the final battles and like Awakening and Fates could take up to more than an hour.
Oh, wow.
Depending on how many units
I was actually
had.
just playing like one of the long ones before I came here, and I was joking with Ben. I'm like, I was just making sure we were on time for the podcast because I was really getting into it.
Oh,
so
God.
yeah, because I don't like to step away once I'm in it because you just will lose track of like where all your. But I feel like it feels easier to me than past games, but maybe that's just because I play a lot of strategy RPGs at this point, and I just feel like because it lays out what the systems do and everything, and it makes it very easy for you to make your decisions. To me, right now, based on even early, I was like, I wonder if this is going to get more difficult.
Yeah.
And the battles, as you do go on, I mean, I've had ones where I'm finally like, damn, if I don't watch what I'm doing, like my guy is just gone in one hit, but it...
Then you have to walk back to the empty classroom and
Right,
still teach?
right.
What do I do here?
Well, thankfully, like I said, you can also recruit people. Sometimes an option may come up where you're in battle and somebody's like, "Don't kill me, I'll join your group." So you have.
I'll go to school. I swear.
Yeah,
I'll go to school.
So yeah, it's interesting like that.
Weird. Would you know when your review is going to be hitting the site?
Yes, it will be Thursday morning. I believe it is 9 a.m. Central Time, so
Okay.
7 a.m. Pacific.
Okay,
so.
very specific. Okay, let's use our imaginations here. Let's imagine Game Informer's end of the year meeting for 2019, top 50 Game of the Year discussions. If you had to guess, will you guess that somebody or more than one person in that room will be making a case for Three Houses?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my God! All right.
I mean, I might.
I'm already just like, I'm very impressed myself, and I was saying to JV and I'm like, oh, this could go high. This could be it might.
So
I
right
don't know.
now,
I'm not done yet.
You're
but
not done yet, but the score in your mind now is like. Okay, that's very
No
helpful.
doubt about it. Actually, I feel very confident that this one, I like it. It's very good.
Leo in the booth, the first 11 out of 10. It's confirmed right here.
This is very exciting.
It sounds like it,
All
right?
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.